Welcome to Yin Yoga. I'm Christy. Let's take a nice full breath. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and she was saying that when we're feeling depleted, which, okay, we're in the middle of a heat wave, who's not feeling a little depleted at the moment, but on a more, sort of emotional level, perhaps, when we're feeling depleted, she was saying it's not because we're giving too much, it's that we're not receiving enough. And sometimes I think that's perspective, and I think that's where gratitude can be really helpful, is to realize that there is so much around us that we are receiving. There is abundance around us. But when we're really stressed, which heat will definitely stress us out for sure, then it's like the opposite of seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. It's that we're seeing the world through stress, fog, smoke-colored glasses, maybe. So we can see the challenges rather than the beauty when we're really stressed out. So it's the challenge of being depleted, I think, is to take note of what we really are receiving. But sometimes it really is that we're not open to receiving for whatever reason. We've been taught to, do everything ourselves, to take care of other people. And so there's also, just allowing ourselves to receive sometimes is really challenging. So I've talked about this before. The ability to ask for help, which is not my strong suit at all. So I'm really working with this idea of being open to receiving. And some of that, I think, comes from calming our nervous systems too, or calming our nervous systems helps us to be more open to receiving. All right, so take a big breath. Take a couple of moments maybe to think about that, and if that feels true for you, that you feel like you're not receiving everything that you need in any way. And if maybe there's some little resistance, some kind of sense of tightness around this idea of being open to receiving. Take a moment to reflect on. So if there's some way in particular that you feel like you're giving too much, you're not receiving enough in return. Is that really accurate? I'm not going to say is that true, but is it accurate? Are there things that you're getting in return that maybe you're not quite conscious of, or you're not really paying attention to? So what we give and what we receive can be different. So we can look for some symmetry, some balance, that maybe we're getting something back that's different from what we're giving out, and so we don't see that balance. Could also be super picky and want a specific thing, and that may not be what we're receiving. So let's try to connect up with some kind of higher power. So the universe, God, source, energy. Just trying to connect up with some energy outside of us, some kind of sacred energy, divine energy. And try to open up to receiving that. And maybe even just like a little affirmation, I am open to receiving all gifts. And then take a big breath. So throughout the practice, we're just going to work on this concept of being open to receiving. We're going to do some kind of a back-supported back bend. So either a couple of blocks to do a heart bench, or a blanket, or a towel, or a pillow that you can use. So a blanket or a towel you can roll to put under your back to do a back bend. A pillow can be used, especially if you have like one of those long, skinny pillows. They work pretty nicely. All right, so let's drop the chin down towards the chest. All right, so I am open to receiving a little less stress in my neck, a little lightness in those shoulder muscles. All right. So, and then we're gonna turn a little bit to the right. So if I weren't carrying all the weight of my own shoulders, would they be more relaxed? All right, coming back to the middle. Let's look to the left. Back to the middle, and then let your head come up. So I'm just fascinated by what's this connection between our thoughts and what's happening in our bodies. So is all of that tension, because I'm not open to receiving, I'm not noticing that I'm receiving. Something to contemplate. All right, coming out onto hands and knees, we're gonna round it into a cat. And then let your spine drop down towards the floor. Let the head come on up. And then we're going to round it back into a cat. And into a dog. And then we're going to stretch our feet a little bit. So bring the bottoms of the toes onto the floor. Let your hips push back towards your heels. Stretching those feet a little bit. If it feels all right to come up and sit on your heels. A little extra pressure there. And then we're going to come back to hands and knees. Let those toes lift up. And then we're going to squeeze them in. And bring the tops of the toes onto the floor and push your hips back towards your heels. And then we're going to come forward again. Let those toes lift up. And we're going to come into a standing forward fold, maybe taking your feet out a little bit wider. I know my legs and my back are tight here, so wider feet makes it a little bit easier. And then let's see if we can bend the knees a little bit. Let's try to come into a bit of a squat. So if you can come down, lower heels in, toes out, let your hips drop down, hands can come to prayer. Try to lengthen up your spine. Breathing out. So releasing out this physical tension in the body can help to give us some space to receive, calming the nervous system, allowing it to receive and shift from those smoke-colored glasses to slightly more rosy-colored glasses. All right, and then we're going to tip it back into a forward fold. Take a couple of breaths. And then come all the way up to standing. Let's see if I can get myself a little more in camera here. All right, so very gently, let's just try to do an extended side angle. So I'm on rug. Yeah, I am on a rug on a carpet. I'm on a blanket, so a little slidey. So just gently, I'm just gonna come in very easily. We're gonna do extended side angle. So feet wide, both feet turning to the right. You're bending the right knee, and then you're just leaning to that right side. Try to get some length out from this left hip. Breath. All right, I'm so not in the right spot here with my feet not being at a firm spot. So we're gonna try to fold in over this right leg. Okay, I'm not gonna straighten it all the way because it's super tight. And then I'm gonna set my feet together again because I'm not on a nice grippy surface. Coming on up, take a breath. Oh, that leg feels so much better. Okay, we're gonna take it to the other side. So feet wide. We're gonna turn both feet to the left, bend in the left knee. Arms come on up. And we're gonna lean, oh, so carefully, onto that left side. Trying to lengthen out from the hip. Breathing. I'm having to dig my toes into that blanket here so I don't slide. All right, we're gonna turn down, look at the left toes. Lean in over the left leg. This time I'm just going to pivot to a wide leg fold. So if that works for you, just going to walk your hands, both feet facing in the same direction. Lean in a little bit. And then if you feel like you want to do a squat again, maybe bring your heels a little closer together, heels in, toes out. So you've got a little bit of a V shape with your feet. Breathe. If you can twist here. Twisting to the right. So left arm against the inner left leg. We're going to extend the right arm out, look a little bit to the right. Come back to the middle. And right arm inside right leg, look a little bit to your left, left arm out. The left arm's going to come back, and we're going to see if we can just sit on down here. Let your legs straighten out, balance your knees a little bit. Take a breath. All right, so let's come into our supported back bend. So if you're doing heart bench, I'm not quite sure which way I really want to go today. I'm not quite sure how my back's gonna feel. So if you're doing heart bench, we're gonna do one block. Oh, I gotta change my camera again. One block on the long, thinner edge. So your spine lays on top, and then one block goes higher underneath your head. You do have some students who like their head to be lower. I always like mine to be higher. If you're doing a pillow or a towel or blanket, so even if you're using like a regular bed pillow, you have a choice of doing along your spine or across your spine. So if you have like a rolled up towel or blanket or a bed pillow, which will be larger, you can either do so that your spine's going along it, or you can turn it so that this is really like right under your shoulder blades or a little bit lower than your shoulder blades, so then your spine's going over this way rather than along. Hopefully that made sense. All right, so I'm going to test out my heart bench and see if those blocks are feeling okay today or not. And if they're not, I'll shift it to the blanket. So get yourself set up. And then your legs can kind of go anywhere you want in your back bend. You can have soles of your feet together in a cobbler's pose. Or you can have your feet on the floor or your legs straight. Okay, here we go. I'm And so you may need a few breaths to sort out how you are and if your props are really working okay for you today. So if at some point you need to come off the prop or you need to change your prop, let yourself do so. Or maybe you need to change where your legs are. All right, so a couple of breaths. We're just going to try to settle in here and kind of sort out how we are. And then again, tap into some higher source. And just see if you can be open to receiving. So just open to receiving whatever energy needs to flow in today. So you might perceive that as light. You might be open just to receiving light. Maybe it's that you're looking today, or what you need today is unconditional love. So you can imagine that energy of unconditional love just flowing into you. Mostly trying to just be open to receiving. So now we're gonna let our back be flat. I will sometimes still put something underneath my head, but you want to let most of your spine be pretty flat on the floor. We're just going to try to slide it into a little reclining pigeon. So again, you can have something under your head for this if you like. If you want to hold the legs for part of the time, I don't recommend holding your legs for the whole time, but sometimes I like to do that in the beginning and then let my legs drop over to the side, or if you're near something that you can prop your foot up on, you can have so if your right ankle's on top of your left thigh, then you're going to have your left foot propped up against a wall or a big heavy piece of furniture that won't slide. All right, so right ankle over left thigh. So again, if you're gonna hold a little bit, and you can see how this goes. So if you're comfortable here, that's fine. You can hold the whole time. I find that like my hands and my shoulders start to get a little stressed out if I'm holding. But again, that's where sometimes a prop, I'm going to change my prop, a prop under the head can help to, it's like you're bringing your shoulders up a little bit closer to the legs so they don't work quite as hard. All right, so breathing. And so maybe just contemplating all of this tension that we carry in our bodies, in our hips, are usually a really tight spot. So some of that just from feeling overloaded, overwhelmed, and depleted. Like you've been doing everything yourself. So how would the hips feel? If you really felt that you were receiving as much as you're giving. How would that feel in your body? Received as much as you gave. Let this side go. So maybe just let your legs kind of slide out. See if you can push this right heel out away from your right hip. And maybe bring the right leg or both legs up into the air. But this could be anything that feels nice for you. So if it's knees in, maybe rocking a little bit. To move my ankles. So if you like, feet in the air, rotate them around, wiggle toes. And then it can be a happy baby. So the knees bend and then they go wide and you're reaching for your feet. You can keep your feet just together, pulling in to your body, or you can try to separate those feet, see how that feels. Maybe rock a little bit if it's not too uncomfortable. Alright, so before we do the other side, let's just stretch our arms overhead. And then I want to do just a wee little bridge pose. So if you have something under your head, just pull it out for a moment. We're going to let the low back drop down into the floor. So your tailbone's starting to turn up towards the ceiling. Arms can be along your sides or overhead, your choice. I'm going to do mine overhead, so I'm getting a little pressure into a nice spot on my shoulders. And trying to feel your legs engage here. Try to pull your hips away from your shoulders. Keeping your breath moving. Working on just staying nice and calm and peaceful inside. Feel your legs working. And then we're going to come on down. So here too, if you can choose which way you want to go. If you want to pull your knees in, I'm feeling like I want to straighten my legs out. And then we're going to take it into reclining pigeon with the left ankle on top of the right thigh. So again, you can, just let your legs drop to the side, or you can hold on to the leg for part or all of the time. So what would it feel like in this hip and this leg in your body? If you received everything that you need. Slide out wherever you want to go here. Try to push that heel out from your hip. Leg can come up again. Maybe pull that leg in a little bit. And then let's do another bridge pose. So we're gonna let the soles of the feet come onto the floor again. No prop underneath your head. Arms either along your sides or overhead. Bring your hips up off the floor. Pull your hips away from your shoulders. Just let your legs work a little bit. If you want to shift a little from side to side, particularly with arms overhead, you can get into your shoulders. And then let your low back come on down into the floor. Take a breath. And then we're going to come up and do a wide leg forward fold. So with a wide leg forward fold, a little elevation for your hips can be helpful. So you can just sit on something small. Sometimes just like a little bit of height helps to sit on something. That lets you tip forward a little more easily. You can also do props under the arms. So if you want a little something to lean on, you can pile up as much as you like. All right, so feet wide, trying to get them to a comfortable spacing, and we're leaning forward. So if you feel like you're getting pulled backward, that's usually where having that little bit of elevation for your hips really helps. Just makes it a little bit easier to tilt forward, so you're not putting quite so much stress on the legs and the low back. And then we're gonna work on breathing. Letting this tightness begin to melt away. carefully. Come up from there. Okay, we're gonna go back to our back so we can work on quads. And then Shavasana. All right, so if you can get into a half reclining hero pose, a hero pose. How's a hero pose? A hero pose is when we're sitting on the shins. So a half hero, I think in some ways it's harder than a hero. You've got one leg where you're on the shin, and so the heel's right on the outside of your hip. And then I think usually you're leaning forward. So if you can get into a half reclining hero, you've got this heel tucked up next to your hip, but you're lying on your back. So if that's not doable, so that can be really hard on knees. It can be hard on the front of the foot too, right in that ankle. And it's also super intense in quads. So that's why I usually like to do reclining deer. So again, reclining deer, you're on your back, you're letting your legs lean over. So now instead of being on the shin, you've got the inner leg facing down. So it tends to be kinder on the knee and not quite as intense on the thigh. So you have a little room to adjust. So you can draw your knees closer together to make it less intense through the thigh, or you can push that foot farther back out to make it a little more intense. And maybe that foot pulls up a little closer to the hip. Okay. So we're gonna see what happens, see how all this goes. So we're coming onto our backs. Take a couple of breaths. If you want to prop under your head, you can do that. So again, if you're gonna do a reclining deer pose, so let's do left leg first. We'll take the knees to the right. So you're gonna start with space between your feet because you want to let this inner leg lean down towards the floor and not be right on top of the other leg. So we're gonna let it lean in, and then you can see how intense is that today. Are you gonna make it a little more intense and take your foot out? You're gonna make it less intense, draw the knees closer together, or you're feeling like you can come into that half reclining hero. And then your right leg, regardless of where your left leg is, your right leg can kind of go anywhere that's working for you. All right, so breathe. And you just want to really be really mindful about, how intense is this? Do you need to shift it a little bit? Do you need to come out of it? So for me, usually any variation in here, I can feel it also a bit in my lower back. It's a little bit of a low back bend, typically. So notice how that is. And again, just imagining, what would it be like? What would your low back feel like on a daily basis? If you felt like you weren't carrying all the burdens of your life. If you felt like you had some balance in giving and receiving, what would your low back feel like? So sometimes we can also worry that we aren't giving enough in return. So that can also be part of this process. To acknowledge the things that you are able to give. might just be kind words, a smile. The energy we give out can be hugely impactful. So if you felt there were balance between giving and receiving, how would your body feel? So once again, slowly releasing this leg, let it slide out slowly. Maybe kick that heel out a bit, lengthen the leg. Maybe move it a little bit. And then we're going to take it right into the other side. So again, if it's a reclining deer, a little space between your feet, let your legs lean to the left so you're working on the right leg, and then you can move that right leg. So if it's too much, draw your knees closer together. If it's not enough, push them farther apart. And breathe. What would it feel like to have this complete balance of energy between giving and receiving? And we're going to gently release this leg. Oh. So intense and so good at the same time. So it can be a little bit of movement of the leg. Whatever feels good here. And so again, because there's that, sort of slight back bend element to that pose. Maybe knees in, maybe a little rocking. And if that feels pretty good, you can try a happy baby here. And then the Shavasana. So finding your spot wherever you want to be today. You can do it seated, you can be on your back, on your side, whatever feels okay. Work on being still. And for Shavasana, feels right. Just focus on allowing yourself to receive. Take a nice deep breath. Just notice how you are. Maybe stretch your arms overhead. Can roll to one side. And if you're coming up, make your way up into a seated position. All right, hands wherever they're comfortable. Legs are at the heart. Take a nice full inhale. And exhale it out. Thank you for being here and sharing in this practice today. Namaste.